Right.
Right.
Welcome one and welcome all. This is another little discussion with Honest as Fuck. You got your boy TJ, you got Jazzy Sizzle, you got Jenny from the block, and you got just Raji. Got another wonderful story we got going on today. So what are we talking about today, ladies?
Well, there are several unfortunate series of events that have occurred in the last several weeks, the last few months, and practically for decades, actually. So, but these have led to epic changes and events in in this country that are far more profound than anything we've probably ever seen or experienced in our 31 years of life. So, with that said, I I think we should just jump right into it because in a matter of a week, 7, 8 days, our whole country has experienced, unity and division in so many different ways and destruction, but yet, this sense of, power in numbers, where, when it comes to these protests and riots. And unfortunately, with great power comes great responsibilities. And now, as a country, it seems like within the 50 states, yes, we're protesting, but it unfortunately led to a series of events where there's increased police brutality against citizens and vice versa, and looting and the destruction of small businesses in our communities. So I guess we should just get right into it.
Sounds good to me.
I feel like this is way bigger than just our country. Like, let's think about it. So as of right now, there have been protests in all 50 states, which is unheard of. So this is like the biggest civil rights movement the world has ever seen. So outside of just the 50 states, there have also been protests in 18 other countries. So these are 18 countries that are standing in solidarity with the United States. Like, they're saying Black Lives Matter, even though they're dealing with their own social issues and they're dealing with their own police brutality, they still stand with the United States. So what do you guys feel about that?
Well, after just hearing everything and seeing everything first, I mean, I think it's still kind of amazing because we got to just think all 50 states are protesting, but they did this all in less than a week. So it wasn't something like, oh, this took a month or something to do. This was all in less than a week. So, every state, they have different, like, we all have like the same agenda. Like, we just want to be heard, like, hey, Black Lives Matter. We just want to make sure that, like, we know that, look, that death was wrong. There's no two ways about it. Like, look, the death was wrong. You can say whatever you want. You can try to cover it up. They know it's wrong. You got evidence. And it's just a bunch of buildup from all these years. Like you said, decades, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Jasmine?
So I know that police brutality always existed against Blacks and minorities, but it's just being recorded more and brought to the surface more. So now that we have this opportunity to see what's wrong with society, we chose to make a movement. So back in 1990, honestly, we probably wouldn't have known about George Floyd and this incident unless it appeared on the news. But now, because we have bystanders and people who are actively involved to record things that are not right, we have the opportunity to use social media platform and recording to really change, make a change.
Well, I mean, going back to that, I mean, you got to think, like, how, I don't remember the exact time frame, but when was the whole Rodney King situation? Because that was pretty big for its time, but things weren't recorded as, like, we didn't have all this technology. You couldn't post everything. So
but that was recorded and it was seen. Remember, after Rodney King, they started rioting. And I think that was around 1990, 1991.
91
Right,
in March.
pretty young. It was like the early 90s. Like, I don't remember the
March
exact.
3rd, 1991.
There you go, 91. Now, it was recorded, but you have to remember, people was like, oh, we don't know what started the situation. Like, everything wasn't clear. But this one, and, Rodney King didn't pass away, unfortunately. This one, you saw the evidence. You saw multiple, like, viewpoints and everything. So it's kind of like.
You saw it from the beginning, very beginning, to the absolute tragic end.
Correct.
And yeah, within, I mean, he was constricted for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. And to that, I'm sure there were like a couple minutes here and there, give or take maybe 5 minutes. So it was, let's say, 15-minute arrest, where he was in police custody. So we've seen it from the beginning to end in different snippets from camera views, so from the store, from someone else recording. And I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but how do you guys feel? How would you feel if something is going on, especially to a loved one, is something like this, and someone's just recording but not really doing anything to help? Because I would try to help in some way, shape, or form.
Honestly, I understand. I understand. Like, she's a Black female, the person who did record, and on top of that, she's 19. She's very young. So for her to see that, it's a very traumatic experience, and I feel bad that she's catching so much backlash that she didn't jump in. These are 4 grown men.
Thank you.
These are 4
and armed
that they are officers. So there's a lot of, I want to say, conflict. Like, me at 19, I don't think I would have jumped in to help. She did the right thing. She called the cops on the cops and then recorded to make sure that everything was documented. Sometimes I feel like we all have to play our role. Everybody's role is not to jump in and be Superman. Sometimes we have to play Lois Lane and just be the person who records things and documents.
Let's be honest, though. I mean, me at 31, I wouldn't have jumped in either, because had she jumped in and said, what she would have said, oh, please stop, it would have just been 2 deaths instead of 1. We wouldn't have anything recorded, because that's when you say, oh, I guarantee you they would have edited that video. Oh, she started hitting, we don't know what this guy did. They would have made a bunch of illusions by standing there and her recording it. She did way more than she would have done by jumping in. I give that.
Necessarily her doing anything. There was another bystander in the recording, a male voice, who was, trying to, I guess, calmly speak to the cops, but it didn't work.
Right, and people expect force to be used, because that's what it's coming down to. Like, oh, people could have tried using force to prevent it. You tried talking. You had video.
All due respect, I mean, with what's going on in society right now, this very moment, where people are stabbing cops and attacking cops and running over cops, if everyone came into unity, not just that girl, forget obviously she's a young girl, but if there were several people, I'm sure tens of people surrounding that area, so they could have came together if really in solidarity and attack, stop those, not really in brutal attacks, but if we're doing it right now in riots and with these looters, and we're attacking cops every day, you see a cop, a stabbed, killed, whatever, ran over right now. So you're telling me in order to save a man's life, we couldn't have done that and still have it recorded?
I mean, at the same time, those people were chanting, that he's not breathing, that he's not moving, to check the pulse. At what point will the cop who has his knee on his neck will come to realize, oh, this is a mistake I'm doing, or maybe I was too angry or something? Because it happens. It happens when people are angry, or they don't know how to de-escalate the situation. And at one point, was that police officer going to say that, like, okay, maybe there's something wrong here?
Well, let's not forget, and I've heard this from other people, and I'm like, I don't get your reasoning there. The man was saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And some people were saying, oh, you have to be able to breathe if you could speak and say you can't breathe.
Right.
Mhm.
If someone's clearly telling you, hey, I can't breathe, you don't have to get off of them completely, but let the person try to breathe. There was 4 of them there. I'm pretty sure just by numbers, you could have still restrained.
Can I also say something, Thomas? You're a volunteer firefighter, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you a first responder?
Yes.
Okay. A police officer is to serve and protect, correct?
Correct.
Are they first responders?
Yes, there are as well.
So if they're in distress, even under a situation of anxiety, let's say, they're still a first responder. So they had 4 police officers, 1 man that was nonviolent, that was compliant. They should have put their place of being a first responder at that very moment.
Right.
Correct.
But I mean, at the same time, that's where the whole debate came from when he was initially arrested a few days ago for 3rd-degree murder. I actually said he can, it was a lesser charge for reasons,
Right.
political reasons. I want to say, one, more than likely, it's difficult, even though he should be 1st-degree. Technically, in a court of law, it wouldn't be, because that would mean
Right. There was no intent.
there was an intention to go and specifically put his knee on George Floyd's neck. He didn't know George Floyd at that moment in the morning, even though there's an article saying that they both kind of they were both bouncers at the same club at the same time, actually, a few years ago. I don't know if any of you saw that article.
I did see that one.
Right. So going back to say 1st-degree, he would have got off. But I always was debating from the very beginning 2nd-degree, because now there is an intent in that very moment, not necessarily a prior intent. It wasn't premeditated. So,
Right.
but when they initially charged with 3rd-degree, I just thought it was to appease the public, because that charge can literally be plead down to a manslaughter charge, which would have lessened his sentence, ultimately lessened his sentence. But now that they're, I guess, with these protests and these riots, it's actually making some change where they up the charges. I'm not sure what the charges for the other 3 are right now, but maybe like accessory to murder or something like that, or manslaughter.
I wanted to bring this up, and I'll ask each one of you guys this individually. I feel at some point, and I talked to a few people about this as well too, with all the rioting that's going on now and the protesting, do you think that now, since we have these 4 cops in custody, that if they let those 4 guys off, anyone that's in charge of keeping those guys in custody and giving them their due say of their charges, if anything is less than down, that they're going to fear what protesters and rioters are going to do in response to that?
I believe there's definitely a fear that if they are not convicted, that if you think this is bad, it's going to be worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do we convict these cops for a couple of years to have peace, or do we let them off and now realistically it's going to be way more rioting, way more protests, way more looting, and way more civil unrest? So it's like, how do you really win? But in retrospect, the law should win, because had this been anybody else who was not a member of law enforcement, they would have been charged with murder.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they are being charged with murder. It's just a matter of which degree. And now it's in terms of an indictment against a grand jury. And now it's up to that jury to convict these people. So now let's just say, is the jury obviously they're going to be influenced by the media, which technically jurors.
Mm-hmm. They shouldn't be,
but because of all of this going on, it's impossible for the jurors to not be influenced. The only way that they can possibly have a fair trial is that they just be convicted by a judge, and they do not have a jury.
Well, that would be a bench trial.
Right.
Where in most cases it might be, depending on what the DA decides and what both parties, the prosecution and his defense, because I'm pretty sure they're all four of them are going to receive a union lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really ultimately up to the court system at this point. And I mean, there's a lot of pressure from the media and there's a lot of pressure from protesters and rioters. So I you know, it can ultimately go up to appeal. Let's say we do convict them. It's a bench trial. The judge sentences them, maybe fairly, maybe not unfair, you know, but it can be appealed. It's an easy appeal when the media and when there's some sort of influence involved. The defense more than likely will appeal their convictions. I mean, who's to say? So that does that mean that we're going to have to continue to protest and riot for months, for years? It's not going to be a speedy trial, especially now with the virus. We're still like in the process of reopening.
But see, you're thinking of it from a logical standpoint as an individual. As a group, everyone doesn't really understand the judge. Like, you know, they don't understand the judicial system and how things are formed. So some people may just say, hey, actions speak louder than words. If we riot more and protest more, I mean, I try not to put too much of my opinion out there, but I always tell people just watch and see how things kind of get affected by media. Don't be surprised if you see a few more riots and then things get pushed up because they're like, look, it's the only way, make everyone happy.
Right.
How do you guys feel about the way people are expressing themselves during this time with rioting, with looting? Do you have any input on what's going on?
I am definitely proud of the rioters. I'm proud of how they're going about getting their voices heard. And when I say the rioters, I very much so mean the protesters. Like, don't get me wrong, I in no way support those that are looting businesses because they are harming their community. So they're putting a lot of these smaller mom and pop businesses out of commission. Like, even though they probably do have insurance, their insurance can't cover the cost of the damages. So these are businesses that will never reopen.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think back to when they were burning down the South Bronx and different parts of the Bronx, it took years and years and years for the Bronx to recover. And when the Bronx did recover, realistically, those businesses that reopened, they were not minority businesses. So it's like you're burning down the businesses of the people that you're supposed to protect, and now other businesses are now coming in and taking over that area. So I believe that this is allowing for a lot of gentrification. That's definitely going to be a new thing, a new bigger thing, especially in the Bronx, as they've been trying very hard to gentrify the Bronx, and it's been hard, but they've made it easy.
It's open season right now for whoever businesses. These businesses that they're looting were owned by various peoples of color: blacks, the Arabics, the Indians, the Hispanics, the Africans.
Right.
People told me that it still lives like where I grew up at in Co-op. They said that so many places just boarded up their whole stores. Like they just got borders everywhere just so people can't smash through the glass. Where I live at upstate now, a lot of the places have closed super early. Like Walmart closed at 5. It went from being 24/7 to closing at 8 because of the virus. Now they were getting threats like, yeah, we're going to riot you guys next. Okay, we're closing at 5. So the protests have been great. Like, you know, people that said, hey, let's make a protest. That's been wonderful. Like, you know, in the rain, they rescheduled. Lots of good things came out of the protests. But the rioters, they have.
I would like to say, you know, differentiate between the three. There are difference between peaceful protesters, which there are plenty of, especially in New York. And then there are rioters, and then you got your looters who are just opportunists, basically, and thieves, straight up selfish thieves. And I believe most of them, the initiators at least, are not from these communities. They come in. I read an article that some of them came from upstate, from Chicago, different places.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, our communities are, like you said, Thomas, the other day, where if you're on the highway and you're speeding and there's like 5 cars, you're one of those 5. If you're still in the middle, you're kind of like not gonna.
Yeah, they're not going to catch you. You just don't want to be the last one in the back.
Exactly. That's how it is on the highway. So in terms of this, I don't feel we are the initiators or the aggressors, but we are the followers. Not we, but us as New Yorkers. These people in these communities that are being looted, they're following whoever these people are. And it's all a setup to pose us as the aggressors, because if you watch media, it's mostly the blacks or Hispanics that are being recorded. What happened to the white people that are throwing bricks and chainsawing down doors and shutters and everything? You don't really see that. And then the ones you do see, they're like, oh, they're employees. I don't know if you guys know.
Well, let's not forget, but they said they had videos of the people that initiated the original riots. They said that they were, I think it was 2 or 3 white people, but they were the first ones that had bricks, smashed those windows, and monkey see, monkey do, just follow right behind.
And that's stupid. Either way, whoever's initiating, we should have came. You see how Dykeman, I have my qualms about Dykeman, but
right.
If you see, but you see how well they protected their community, or even Morris Park with the Albanians and the Italians. Why is South, as a Bronx as a whole, or Brooklyn or Manhattan, we stand up and protect our communities and stand up together in unity and defend these stores.
Well, thank God this didn't happen in Boston yet, because if this goes to Boston or some of those other, or Philly, well, it did have, well, you've seen some riots in Philly, but Boston's one of those, like, you have some areas that are a little bit more, I don't want to say higher risk, but they have a little bit more of a hot spot. Like, you're like, this area is going to need a little bit extra notice on it.
So I have a question. Do you think it's a coincidence that about 100 years later, 100 years later, 1921, the Tulsa Massacre happened, and this happens? So the Tulsa Massacre happened in 1921, where a whole bunch of white supremacists took over a black community, looting, doing the same exact thing because they didn't want them a part of their community. They actually ruined their Black Wall Street. And do you think it's a coincidence, or do you think it's just history repeating itself? Do you think it's our turn? What are your thoughts?
I think that history does repeat itself, but if we were to reenact the Tulsa Massacre, we're doing it all wrong. They ruined the Black economy. They burned down banks. They burned down their schools. They made it so that the Black people had nothing but to lean on the white economy. So if that was the route we're taking, we're doing it all wrong, because there's a lot of these institutions that are still standing.
Absolutely. I feel like we should really hit the government buildings. I mean, hope this is not used against me. Not me, but rioters, if that's the cause, if that's the route they want to take, and in order to do it effectively, hit the government buildings, hit actual Wall Street right now, what it is, what they stole from Black people, hit Fifth Avenue, hit the courts, like where it really hurts the white people. But you want to hit the mom and pop shops. You want to hit the bodega down the street where you always got your coffee or your bagel, whatever. What do you think is going to be built there now? It's already bad enough that these businesses suffered because of COVID, and their insurance companies only provided but so much. And our wonderful president did not, allow them anything from that stimulus package. They didn't receive any, if any, little to none of whatever the stimulus bailout. So they were just hanging on by a thread, and then now you want to loot them?
Mm-hmm.
And to think about just the ignorance of people. When they actually didn't make it downtown to loot anything, they looted Soho and Fifth Avenue. You want to loot Gucci and Dior and Zara? Are you kidding me? Where in the world does that help with George Floyd or anything that is going on with this movement? How did that help progress what you're trying to push through? How is that going to enact social change? Now you're just a fly protesting bum.
Well, guys, I think originally where rioters are coming from, it's this, and I don't know how many of you guys follow up on sports, but originally there was a football player named Colin Kaepernick who got into a lot of media press. So he was always saying, like, look, you know, we always do the national anthem, which they still do during games, but he would just say, look, you know, I'm not going to stand for the national anthem. I'm going to kneel. And it was a quiet protest. He didn't offend anybody, didn't curse. Well, he offended people, but he didn't curse. He didn't make, you know, a big spiel. He didn't say, you all have to follow me. He just said, look, I'm not standing up for it. I don't believe it. Now, what people are saying is, look at all the examples of what worked and what doesn't. So they said, well, look, he was just quiet. He said he didn't want to do something, and they pretty much blacklisted him. He hasn't had a football job since. He won't get put on any team. He was a pretty good quarterback. He brought his team to a Super Bowl one year. He didn't win, but he brought them to a Super Bowl. So, you know, still got to be pretty good for that. He hasn't been played. He's been blacklisted. They go and say, hey, well, why don't you guys do things like Martin Luther King? At the end of the day, assassinated. Then some people are like, hey, well, let's look at Malcolm X, who was more rebellious. He was more out there. Let's
And
fight, you
he
know,
was
fight.
also assassinated.
Thank you. Let's look on another one people aren't bringing up. You have some people, like, just in general, a lot of people that are.
Gandhi?
Yes, thank you. I was thinking of Gandhi. He's also, you know, didn't believe in violence, assassinated. At the end of the day, people are assassinated. So what their mindset is, if you're going to kill us off anyway, might as well take the first shot. Might as well steal from you. Might as well do everything, because no matter what way we do it, we're going to end up dead regardless. So I'm not saying I agree with them, but when you look at their standpoint, how do you want to die? The person that was peaceful and got shot? Do you want to be the person that tried to yell back, got his bunches in, and then shot? Or do you just want to be the person that loses his job, says, hey, that wasn't nice, and then still wind up dying anyway by saying, hey, get off of, you know, you're on my neck, I can't breathe. So here is a question. What is the right way to protest and how you feel about something? Or is there even one?
I feel like society will never be happy on the way we protest. We can do it the right way, we can do it a peaceful way, we can do it a violent way. They will never be happy. What society needs to do is just change the way the system is run, remove systematic racism and oppression. And once we remove that and fix some of those structures, then we can move forward. But until then, we're gonna just continue to protest.
How do you feel about defunding the police? You know, the police, and especially in New York, because yes, they are here to serve and protect us, and a majority of them don't, I want to say, and some do. But if let's look at it from a different perspective. Now, if we defund them, who's to say they're going to be like, well, I don't want to do this shit. I'm not making as much.
Thank you.
You know, and they're already making little enough as it is, NYPD. So now to defund them, to try to hit them where it hurts, let's say now, who's to say who can break into our house? Who are we calling? We're calling the cops, right? Now, where the cops now, if they're all gonna be, they're all gone because they're like, well, we're not making enough, so I'm tired of this bullshit, and I'm not showing up to work, or I'm finding another job. So then now we have a lack of, I want to say, civil authority now. So who's to say, who's gonna reprimand those people if they decide to come in my house right now? I'm gonna call the cops. But if there's barely any cops to be found, especially if they're handling other situations, I'm gonna die. Unless if I you know.
What a lot of people don't know is kind of like what you're saying, but social work or jobs when you have to deal with the public, it's not an easy job. Like you have teachers not getting enough pay, have crazy hours, working hard, not respected. Me as a volunteer firefighter, believe me, it's hard keeping firefighters as volunteer because we're not getting paid, but we're still asked to do, the same job. We're asked to help out others. We don't have the nicest people coming to you when you're just trying to say, hey, can you give us space while we go on to something? Not everyone wants to cooperate. They're like, who are you? Police, you like, as much as we don't want to say like, oh, they don't want to do their job, they have family, they have a life. I'm sure people join in while some people may just say, hey, there's a lot of money. You have people that grow up saying like, hey, I really want to be a cop, I want to help people. Then their first day on the job, someone throws a brick through their car, or they see something and it's disgusting. They have to bring all that home, and no one's there saying, hey, we appreciate you, or hey, we like doing this. You never really hear cops getting appreciated. It's always, let's find the negative there and complain about it. And yes, it's their job to serve us. And I get what people like, oh, we shouldn't have to congratulate them. It's their job. Every one of us have a job or had a job at some point. You can't say that you don't feel better when someone's like, hey, you did a good job, here's an award. If you just did your job the whole time and only got scolded when you did a bad job, you would find little interest in your job. You get stressed. Some people shouldn't have a job if they can't handle stress like that. But you always got the media on you. You always got to worry about being recorded.
And I say that to say, because if you compare the salaries for NYPD compared to Yonkers or White Plains, it's a higher bracket. Like Yonkers, I'm sure they start out at 80 grand, where NYPD starts out at 35, if little. And then even in White Plains, it's 90 and above. You're starting out. So, I mean, I'm sure there are races that are amongst those groups of police force, but you don't really hear about too much brutality. You hear about a lot of arrests, but there's not that much brutality, because maybe it is like, okay, they feel like, I mean, everyone, all of them, anyone in power is take the power to their head. And in all platforms, no matter how much you're getting paid. But at the same time, maybe because they're getting paid more, do you think that funding and, obviously because of higher taxes and higher property taxes, their funding is a lot higher. They feel more appreciated because they're getting paid more, and it's not as prevalent as it is in the NYPD or other cities like, LA or Miami.
I don't think defunding NYPD or police officers would be beneficial. I think maybe restructuring on how the budgets are, spread out amongst them, because they definitely do need more training. I think the NYPD just passes a fitness test and that's it.
Well, they have psychological tests too. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, but there's so many loopholes that even if you don't pass a psychological exam, if you know somebody who knows somebody, they can get you in. And that's actually happened in the past with a lot of the police brutality. It was like 2 cases where the officer did not pass his psychological exam, and he just knew somebody in the academy, and that's how he got in.
But at the same time, guys, think, so because 4 people messed up, you taking away everybody's salary. I kind of think that's kind of a little messed up, don't you think?
I think it just needs to be restructured.
Yeah, it's more than 4. If you want to deduct their pay and give it to his family for that, I'm completely down with that, because you know what? You killed their father, you killed the brother, cousin. I get it. Like, if you want to give their funds away, sure, that's great. Restructuring, also great. Why are we taking away the whole, taking away everyone's salary, chipping away at them, when it was just 4 people that didn't perform their job the right way and unfortunately made someone lose their job, lose their life?
But Thomas, in the same respect, that's like saying, well, there's only maybe one or two people in the Black community that are negative or that are shooters. So why, when you see Black people, the first thing you assume is that they're going to shoot you or they're going to rob you, when it's not really prevalent amongst Black people? The same can be said that way.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. I feel though that anything that's taken away should be done from those 4 people, and just restructure the training. If you want to do that with everyone, that's great. Or check out, like, statistically with each police force, just say, okay, well, look, we're going to do these trainings. If you have police forces where there's occurrences of this, then yeah, you could have those people get deductions or anything like that. But at the same time, it's not one force they're doing it. They're trying to take it from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it, guys. We all have jobs. So say if one person at your job messed up, how would you feel you lost your pay because one person or a few people didn't do their job?
It would suck.
It would suck, but
It would suck.
But realistically, that does happen in some cases. Think about cases where corporations or businesses they don't do what they're supposed to, and now there's no business. They close the whole business.
To agree with that, yes, but that's when someone higher up messes up. This wasn't the chief. This wasn't, the president. This was for employees. So even if you got rid of those guys and fired all of them, made them unable to work, that's great because there's someone on the lower pole. Like, I always try to relate things to like stuff we can relate to. So say for instance, like if you worked at Walmart, a cashier let somebody get away with like a $300 item, or a cashier did something that was bad. They're on the bottom. Granted, there's more cashiers in that environment, but on the totem pole of things, they're on that lower level. So you want the person above them, the people all the way up, to get affected by something that they did.
But they do, though. If there's a lot of loss in a store, those CEOs and those district managers, they do get affected. They don't get bonuses, things like that.
If the CEO or someone larger up messes up, if a
what I will say is, us as civilians, we are unintentionally programmed to not assault an MTA worker. We're unintentionally programmed not to assault a police officer, just because there's signs everywhere. If you're gonna hit an MTA worker, you're gonna go to jail for 7 years, right? You see it everywhere. You see it in commercials. You see it on the little computer screen in the buses. There should be some sort of system in place where it's the other way around. If you are reckless with a civilian, there should be consequences. If you are reckless with racism, there should be consequences. Because at the end of the day, a police officer has, this is going to sound wrong, has a right to his own opinion. But when he's on that uniform, he has to serve and protect. It doesn't matter what personal opinions he has about a community. Like, for example, if a doctor were to operate on a patient and they're racist, but they're under oath to treat that patient according to their medical necessity and whatever personal opinions they have about their race, religion, sex, orientation, it does not apply. It should not apply to how they treat that particular person. And it should be the same case for police officers.
But as police officers, your job is to make sure that everyone is safe and that there's no physical threat. Now, cops should be allowed to restrain, which is definitely okay. Their restraint forms, I've worked with individuals and people like, with disabilities and elderly, where you have to use restraints if someone, like, someone has something where they're violent towards others to help others. I've never killed anybody with a restraining hold. That man was on the ground and it was 4 people. So that restraint that he had wasn't anything proper. Number 2, I don't know about y'all, but I get aggravated when I see if you assault someone, you could get like a $7,000 fine or 7-year fine. What job is it okay to hit somebody? Unless it's a sport, if I'm mad at my teacher and I just punch him in the face because I'm mad, that's okay. It doesn't see a
No,
sign and I'll get fined.
it's not okay. I think the motto is they have to assess the situation.
Yes.
They have to assess the situation to see even if force is necessary. So if a person is not armed, they're compliant. In reality, force is not necessary. But there are a lot of social media videos out there where you see the person or the African American putting their hands up and they're still using force when it's not necessary because they already surrendered. They're willing to be arrested.
And that's why training has to be redone, because people aren't understanding that. And that's why I said I'm completely okay with that. But at the same time, these guys that are like, you know, they're gonna have to end up getting trialed. We can't lie to ourselves. We know the media is gonna affect a large portion on this, because they're gonna be like, if anything, if these guys are taken lightly at all, they're gonna be so much worse than they are now.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And like I said before, it's just a shame that we're in 2020 and we really have to reevaluate and restructure the process on how to become a policeman. And even with lawyers, and I'm sure with some doctors, they have to have continuing education throughout their career. So why shouldn't that apply to even firefighters with their codes? I'm sure they have
We get trainings all the time.
All the time. Why can't it should also apply to police officers? Because I mean, my dad was a cop in Guyana like over 40 years ago, and they always had training. And even he spoke on the situation where he's like, you shoot. If you have to shoot, you shoot to maim the person. You don't ever shoot to kill. That's never what they were taught. And it's crazy that that's a completely different country, and that was over 40 years ago compared to now. That's why I'm saying it's a shame we're in 2020, and now we have to like spoon feed these police officers and the entire force that's what we're protesting for. Even though we've been protesting, there's so many riots and protestings that have taken place since, prior to the civil rights movement pertaining to this and other unfairness that us people of color have to suffer and go through. But for it to continue on in modern day, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Once again, what's the right way to get a point across? That's what all these riots and protests are for. How do you
quite frankly, we shouldn't have to try to get a point across 400 years later.
That's right.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of frustrated people out there, and I think this rioting and this protesting is bigger than police brutality. I think this also has to do with just racism in general and where Black people stand in society. People are tired of being the bottom of the totem pole. People are tired of systematic oppression. There's something called, right after the civil rights movement, there's something called redlining, where real estate agents would look at the city map, and they would draw red boxes on the city map, and they would label these boxes as unmarketing boroughs, right? They would not want to sell to white people there. And guess where they would put those, where they would place Black and Spanish people into those red boxes. So it's called redlining. So, and then what happens is when they become a poor community, a lot of things like the school system is based on property taxes. So then when you're living in a poor neighborhood, you get lower resources in your schools. Your teachers are not paid enough. And most likely what happens is you're not going to be as successful as the person who may be living in a better neighborhood or equal opportunity.
I mean,
and redlining still happens today.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Projects.
Yeah.
Where do you think projects come from?
And that's how gentrification happens. That's when they reassess the redlining and they're like, this isn't such a bad area anymore. Let's invest.
Exactly.
So as we start to wrap up, what do you guys' final thoughts about what's going on with the protests, and like where do you think it's gonna go? Like, what do you think the outcome may be?
I feel in order to make, I mean, we've protested throughout history, and like you said, there were various different types of protesters, nonviolent, rebellious, educated ones, you know, just to inform people. When I mean educated, just informative, and that's all their purpose was. But it, you know, when you look at it, those, like Thomas said, those people were assassinated, and it's like, I think at this point, the protesting, yes, we should continue, but there should be an end. Like, where do we stop? Because we can't keep protesting forever, right? It has to be an end. But so now, like you said, in order for there to be an end, what has to happen? So I feel like voting is a very important, right? That, you know, all of us, even as Black people, especially women, you know, we didn't have the right to vote. We were the last to have that right. And I came across this article where it said that there were 5 states that Trump won by significantly. And for instance, like Trump won Wisconsin with 23,000 votes, but 93,000 people of color didn't vote.
Right.
Right. So he won by 23. But had those 93,000 people of color voted, he would have been out. And even in Florida, well, you know what? Let's not go to Florida. Let's go to the 211,000. He won by 211,000 votes. But there were 530,000 people of color that did not vote. We could vote. We could have voted him out from the very beginning, or even not just him. Congress, our elected officials, assemblymen, congressmen, judges. You know. It's the power that we had and we all fought for in various different times of civil unrest. But if we all went out and vote, especially as people of color, Black people, everyone, we could vote these people out. And I think that's where it starts.
But see, as much as that voting is true, they have ways against thinkers like yourself. That's why you have the Electoral College, where we could vote night and day and have a popular vote for another person. If the Electoral College votes for that one person, guess who wins?
But those,
right. But that's what Jennifer's saying. That's why it's important to vote, because we don't only have to vote for our president. We have to vote for our Senate. We have to vote for our House of Representatives. We have to vote for
votes, yes.
Because these are the people who make up the Electoral College. So if we have an Electoral College full of Republicans, but we're voting a Democrat president, how much do we expect him to accomplish? Think about all of the issues Obama had when he first got into office before the House was Democrats. The same rules apply.
What I hope the protesters and rioters will eventually learn is, while you want to get your word across, keep doing that. But what they need to learn is, we need to start promoting our smaller businesses, our mom and pop shops, because those are the people that know what it's like to struggle and to become something. And hopefully those are the people that can grow. And it's not only helping the local businesses out. Yes, we all love our iPads, we all love that. And I know we can't ever stop from buying that. But there's certain things where, hey, do I really need to go to Walmart when I could go to like a farmer's market, or I could go to a mom and pop store? It may be a few dollars more, but long term, I want to see smaller businesses thrive. Let's actually start hitting bigger people where it hurts, the pockets, not by destroying property, because there's ways around that. The system's meant for us to destroy their property, so insurance could give them more. Let's hurt them by helping us grow. So us people of color, the stores we own, let's support them instead of bashing them for being too expensive or not having the product we want. Let's help support one another more growing. And just by doing that, that'll help lower the power of those that want to control us. All we need to do is grow more as a group, because united we'll stand. That's all we got to do. Just try to group together. I think that'll work. So the protesting's a start, but forming that unity, but we just have to start helping the growing aspect instead of destroying.
I agree. So I think this was very informative. It was very deep, but you know, we've only really reached the surface. There's so much more to uncover. But everything that's going on, I feel like this is not the end of the fight. This is kind of just the beginning. And
Yep.
I can't wait to see what all of these things uncover.
Yeah. I just can't wait for the President of the United States to officially address the situation. I think it's crazy that he hasn't even addressed it yet.
He did.
That
Through
bunker.
a tweet.
He did. That's
he had a speech.
everything. But
Can't bring media in that bunker.
my forever President Barack Obama addressed his.
I see. Yes. Obama did address it, but the current president did not address it. He just sent.
Clinton did. A lot of the previous presidents did. It was Clinton. It was
Bush.
Trump
hey,
address it. He said, if they start looting, you start shooting. Hello.
But
that
he
is
still
not
addressed it.
the
Whether
way
it's
to
negative or
communicate to the
positive,
nation.
He addressed it. Where Trump is just staying in his bunker with no Wi-Fi and like, I just could, avoid it.
Gonna address it in the way that we saw fit, or in a way that we think that a president should address it. You're saying he didn't address it, and that's not a fact. The fact is he did address it. He just didn't address it in a way that we thought that he should. But
That he should, yeah.
That is a conversation that will take a whole.
For real.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
I want to leave y'all with this quote that someone left on Instagram. I'm not going to say the person's name because it was just a public quote. They said that America has been looting Blacks for 400 years.
All of us who are not white, they've been
Every non-white person for years.
every
Yes.
non-white person for hundreds of years.
Every non-white male, because y'all females too, color or no color, y'all been going through struggles.
Females too.
Not only has America looted from Black people, America looted Black people from Africa. Let's try that.
So the day with India, they brought Indian and Blacks and Hispanics all to the Caribbean, all to Americas.
Every non-white person, yes,
person.
been looted.
It was the battle of us as a whole community, like not community, but us as colored people. We have to fight that battle. We're still fighting that battle. Then it was men. Then it was like the males had more rights than us, no matter what color they were. Then us as females, we were like shit. We were at the bottom of the totem pole. Well, actually second to the bottom, and then now we're still fighting all this racism. And it's not even a color battle. It's not even us versus whites. It's us versus racism and ignorant people, because racism exists in any ethnicity. If you look at it, it exists everywhere, not just with white people. So
Hispanics, Spanish.
It's the battle that we're having against racism, and that's from ignorance.
As we said, as history always repeats itself, you always have the upper class or the has versus the lower caste and the have-nots. In every society, every culture, every country has always had that, and you've always had an overthrowing of that government in some sense. So could this be the end?
Yeah. I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back. I think we're all fed up. All of us combined, we're just fed up. We're fed up. And it's great to have some white people out there supporting us. I'm glad, I like the protesters, but to end off, I wanted to say, the police they've been attacking us. They've been, what exactly how do I word this? Because I had it all up here. Basically, they've abused us. They've taken advantage of us as a whole society, and then they also are attacking the protesters, attacking the rioters. I have not yet to see a police officer attack these damn looters.
Oh, the protesters have been attacking the looters.
Yeah,
well, the protesters have, of course, but the police.
Well, are you going to attack a person that might attack you back, or are you going to attack the person that's not?
The looters have been attacking the police.
Yeah. So I'm going to attack. Those are the people who should be justified. If you want to shoot them, go ahead, because they're stabbing you in the neck. All right, go ahead. But
oh, you mean like how when we're younger, how the bully attacks the person who can't fight back, whereas the kid that got karate lessons? No, this stuff never happens in life.
You know, I think my final point, my takeaway will be whatever it is that you're doing, just make sure it's for the right cause. Because
Right.
when you're out there and you're doing things for the wrong cause, it affects more than just yourself. You have
Absolutely.
the power to affect the whole movement. So if you're really for the movement and you're really for the cause and you're down for Black power, just make sure you're supporting that in a positive manner.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And if you do want to loop some things,
All right. Well, ladies, I couldn't have thought of a better way to end my Thursday night, which is now my Friday morning, speaking to you guys. Once again, this is your boy TJ, Jazzy Sizzle, Jen from the Block, and Jess Raji. We are signing out.
Bye.
Please.